Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to dive into a design pattern that is an absolute game changer for complex business rules, the specification pattern. Seriously, by the end of this, you'll see why it's like the perfect matchmaker for your code. So, let me ask you something. Does your code ever look like this? Just a tangled mess of if-else statements. We've all been there, right? It's a total developer nightmare. The more your business logic grows, the harder it is to read, the bigger a pain it is to test, and you're terrified to change anything because you might break it all. Okay, to make this really concrete, let's use a classic example, a ride-sharing app. Think about it. Their main job every single second is to match the perfect driver to a ride request. Sounds easy, right? But the number of rules you have to check, well, it stacks up super fast. And yeah, this is usually what that logic looks like in the wild. Just one giant block of if statements. Is the driver available? Check. Got the right car? Check. Is their rating good enough? Check. It just goes on, and it becomes this tangled, painful mess. What happens when business comes to you and says, hey, we need to add a rule for pit-friendly drivers? Or what if you need to reuse just one piece of that logic somewhere else? It's a total maintenance headache. But what if there was a way to untangle all of this? Well, there is. And this is where our hero, the specification pattern, swoops in. It's all about bringing precision and, honestly, sanity back to our business logic. So what is this thing really? At its heart, the specification pattern is built on one incredibly powerful idea. You take a single business rule and you wrap it up, you encapsulate it inside its own object. So instead of having this giant clump of conditions, each individual rule gets its own dedicated, reusable, and super testable class. You get perfect isolation for every single piece of logic. I love this analogy. Think of each specification as its own little specialist, a matchmaker. You've got one matchmaker who only cares if a driver is available. Then you've got another one who is obsessed with ratings, and a third one that only looks at the vehicle type. Each one has just one crystal clear job to do. Okay, so that's the what. Now let's get our hands dirty and talk about the how. We're going to build these little matchmakers piece by piece and see what the core components actually look like. It all starts with this one simple foundational interface, I specification. That T you see is just a placeholder for whatever object we're checking. In our case, a driver. And look, it has only one method, is satisfied by. All this method does is take in an object, like our driver, and return a simple true or false. Does this driver satisfy the rule? Yes? No? That's it. This is the simple universal contract for all of our business rules. All right, let's look at our first real example. This is the available driver specification. It's just a class that implements that interface we just talked about, and its is satisfied by method. It has literally one line of logic. Return driver is available. That's it. It's focused, it's self-contained, it's perfectly isolated. Okay, but what if a rule needs some kind of input? No problem. Take the vehicle type specification. When we create an instance of this, we can pass in the vehicle type we're looking for, say an SUV. Then all its is satisfied by method does is check if the driver's vehicle is a match. Again, one single clear responsibility. And let's do one more. The minimum rating specification. Same idea. You give it a minimum rating, maybe 4.8 stars, and it just checks if the driver's rating is high enough. You're starting to see the pattern here, right? Each class is tiny, super focused, and the name tells you exactly what it's for. All right, so we've built our individual matchmakers. They're pretty cool on their own, right? But the real magic, the true power of this pattern happens when we start combining them. This is where we go from that initial chaos to some beautiful, beautiful clarity. And we do this using something called composition. We create these special specifications, like an and specification. Now, this one's a little different. It doesn't check a business rule itself. Instead, its job is to combine two other specifications. So you could give it our available driver specification and our vehicle type specification, and it will only return true if both of them pass. And you can probably guess what an or specification or a not specification would do, right? The possibilities are endless. And here it is. This is the grand finale. This is the big payoff. Remember that nasty, tangled if block from the beginning? Just look at the aftercode. It is a single, fluent, incredibly readable line. You just chain your specifications together with this .and method, and then you ask that final combined spec if it's satisfied by the driver. It reads almost like a sentence. That is clean code. So let's just walk through the recipe one more time. Step 1, you grab your vehicle type specification and tell it you need an SUV. Step 2, you grab your minimum rating specification for 4.8 stars. Step 3, you snap them together using .end to create a new, more complex rule. And finally, step 4, you just hand a driver object to this combined rule and get back your simple true or false. It's honestly like building with Lego blocks. Now, I want to be clear, this is way more than just a clever academic exercise or some trick to make your code look pretty. Adopting this pattern has huge, tangible, real-world benefits, especially if you're working on a complex system. So let's run through them. First up, reusability. You need to find all the drivers with a high rating for some new feature. Boom! You already have a class for that. You can reuse it anywhere. Second, testability. Come on, testing that tiny minimum rating specification class is a piece of cake compared to wrestling with a giant method with a dozen nested ifs. Third, readability. That code we just saw, it practically documents itself. It tells a story. And finally, it perfectly follows the single responsibility principle, which is just a cornerstone of good software design. Now look, is it overkill for a simple if statement? Yeah, probably. But when your business rules are complex, when they're always changing and evolving, this pattern is an absolute lifesaver. So there you have it, the specification pattern. It's all about transforming those tangled business rules into clean, reusable, and testable little components. And as we wrap up, I'll just leave you with this question to think about. What messy match in your own codebase is just sitting there waiting for you to introduce a set of perfect, precise match?